in wherever you are. It's a delight to have you on this very important discourse as we close the year and look forward to a very fruitful 2026. I must indicate that this is one of the presentations that we usually would do every year, just to give us as leaders opportunity to kind of reflect back on how far we have come throughout the year, our challenges that we faced. In fact, this 2025 has been such a unique year with its own unique challenges. And we as the ABA consults deem it fit as usual to kind of do some introspection and self-reflection to see how the year has been and what are the prospects for 2026. On that note, I want to say that the ABA consult is a consult that is more involved in leadership, capacity building, change management, and corporate strategy development for various sectors, from security risk management to corporate strategy development and change management as is appropriate, especially with regards to the changing times that we find ourselves in. So this afternoon, we're going to have a focus on beyond the challenges. Indeed, all of us, one way or the other, have an understanding of how the year has been, its own challenges that we've had. And so at this point, I want to say this is Dr. Abbey, and Dr. Abbey is the lead consultant for the Abbey Consult. And it's a pleasure having you once again. Now, when we talk about the year, 2025 has been interesting, as I indicated earlier. Interesting in the sense that it's not going to only be remembered, or it cannot be remembered as an easy year, but we describe it at the Abbey Consult as a revealing year because 2025 challenged systems. We tested our systems from digital systems to procedures to every system that is put at the workplace, from security down to corporate to academia. Everywhere has been challenged. Institutions have been stretched, and leadership authority has been brought under scrutiny. And more importantly, we believe that leadership has been brought to the fore and exposed to the extent that a lot of people begin to question the relevance of leadership in the workplace today. So our aim for this afternoon is to just encourage all of us to pause a bit and reflect. Today is 30th December. To pause and reflect and ask a couple of questions. Those questions should not only relate to what happened within 2025, but we should also be looking at what the year has revealed about us as leaders and what 2026 will demand or is now going to demand of us moving forward. Every sector, as I mentioned, from academia to corporate to security, law enforcement, military, every single sector has its own share of the challenges of 2025. We were confronted with some basic uncomfortable truths, but they are real. These truths relate to economic pressure that push businesses to the high to the wall. Households alike, everybody felt the pinch of it across the globe. It's not only in Africa, across the entire globe, the challenges continue. And security threats became more complex and more digital and more transnational. We are all privy to the law enforcement space where, due to digital advancement, rapidity of change, so much complexity has come to surround the security sector. criminal operatives have become more sophisticated, and citizens also question institutions' capability in handling some of these things, from economic perspective to politics to academic excellence. Citizens have continually questioned how effective leaders have been. Employees have questioned traditions at their various workplaces, where many will pose the question, what is the use of leadership when they cannot solve the basic problems that they face on a daily basis? Then students also question the relevance of the education when it does not translate into meaningful, expertise or skills that will benefit the world. The youth alike also question traditions, cultural practices, and 2025 has been that year where even voters in many parts of the world question politics itself and began to ask questions about the relevance of it all, especially when it comes to democracy. A lot of people, and we saw the upsurge in, advocacy with regards to transformation in democratic governance systems or structures. In Ghana, for example, we saw that necessitated the call for constitutional review. And so 2025 stripped leadership to its core, to the extent that everyone felt leadership indeed is the foundation, is the fulcrum around which everything revolves. Now, the question many will ask is, from the leadership perspective, can those in authority still be trusted to lead? Owing to all the things that have been seen within the year, the question will be, can they still be trusted, or can we be trusted as leaders to lead in the midst of all the challenges? We have the authority to do so. One of the key revelations, or some key revelations within the year bordering on leadership, has to do with the fact that authority without trust is very fragile. Titles did not calm anxiety, as you may allude to. Ranks did not guarantee legitimacy. Policies did not inspire confidence. Policies are questioned every now and then. So the leader in us has been questioned, where most institutions that actually succeeded did not do so by power, but by credibility. As people question, as their workers, as their staff, as their citizens, as the traditional, beneficiaries of all policy, structures have questioned credibility. So those who succeeded through credibility. They did not succeed by force, but by fairness. And team members or employees at the various workplaces are questioning how fair the system is to them. So those organizations that moved to the extent of ensuring or promoting fairness succeeded to a very large extent. And the revelation within 2025 also spoke to the fact that leadership indeed is not position. It is the presence. And by presence here, we mean how connected a leader is to his or her followers. That is what 2025 revealed with regards to organizations or institutions that succeeded within the year. That brought to question the need for trust. And trust indeed can only be earned, as Dr. Mester and co put it, through credibility, reliability, intimacy, and self-orientation, where self-orientation means how selfless a leader is and dears to the hearts of the followers. If a leader is seen to be self-centered, indeed, that cannot, inure to the benefits of his stewardship, and he or she will not earn the trust of his people. It's very important that leaders begin to take note of this trust equation so that at any point in time you ask yourself critical questions about your own credibility, your knowledge, your experience, how it impacts, how adaptable you are to the current trends, reliability, which has to do with your integrity and your intimacy to your followers, how you look at their interests before yours. Now, a couple of lessons stem from that. I must indicate that this presentation is going to be brief so that we can have opportunity to ask questions and also contribute for all of us to learn. It's not a one-way presentation. It's going to be a discourse. So I'm just facilitating the discussion. Now, one of the key lessons drawing from the trust issues, the questions regarding credibility of leaders, has to do with the fact that trust has become the new currency within the leadership space. People are no longer interested in the experts or the expertise that the leader possesses, but trust is now the new currency. For corporate leaders, trust determines whether employees give you their creativity or mere compliance. Now, there is a difference between compliance and commitment. As people just do when your staff or your employees or your followers do just because they don't want to incur the displeasure, your displeasure, they are being compliant. But commitment goes beyond compliance. They do it because they feel part and parcel of the entire process, the entire system, the entire organization. So for law enforcement agencies, trust determines whether intelligence will flow in or it will dry up. It is when people trust that they can inform either the police or intelligence services or any of the law enforcement agencies. For traditional rulers, and this I must at this point indicate that this presentation is going to cover a couple of sectors, as I indicated from beginning. For traditional rulers, trust determines whether culture unites or fractures communities. When the citizens or the residents or the occupants of that community do not trust in the leader or the traditional leader, the culture will not unite them. It's likely to, divide the community. So that's one of the key lessons. And we have seen numerous conflicts that erupted in most communities, not only in Ghana, in Africa, and across the globe as well, where people do not trust their original, even their MPs and all that. Now, for academics, trust determines whether knowledge influences policy or gathers dust. When the stakeholders do not trust in what is being churned out, definitely trust will be eroded. So the first lessons that we are learning is that trust is the new currency. For politicians, trust will determine whether citizens participate or withdraw in silence. And all of us here on this call, we are privy to how, apathy will set in the voters, where turnout during elections are visibly seen to be low because people do not have trust in the system. And 2025 saw that happening. Especially in Ghana from 2024 leading to 2025, a lot of people became disillusioned about the political system, but hope is being restored. And I believe that going into 2026, a lot more needs to be done for that to happen. What it means is that in 2026, trust will no longer be a soft value, but a strategic asset. So it's very important for all of us here to know or to get to appreciate the fact that trust is key in everything. If I trust you, be it even at personal level, I will be able to divulge certain information to you. I will be able to appreciate what your intentions are and whether it's going to inure to all of us our benefits. So leaders must not only look at trust as that soft value that is, theoretical. In fact, it is a strategic asset that you can use if you build it well across 2026. I can assure you it's going to be one of the key benefits or things you derive from your leadership stewardship. Now, trust is built when leaders are visible in difficulty. When things become tough, that is when leadership is tested. That is when your leadership is brought to the fore. So where do you stand? How do you project yourself? How do you carry yourself? How do you keep your words? How do you kind of give hope to your team members or your followers? That is when trust becomes visible. In ordinary times or in normal times, trust may not become a key issue, but in difficult times, every follower will expect that trust to be visible, and leaders must be conscious of that. Now, honest in uncertainty, in the sense that when leaders are able to project integrity at cross-board, be it in very complex or even uncertain cases, trust is built. Now, consistency in values. You don't say one thing and lead to the other. And we saw in 2025 the lessons thereof. Many leaders said so many things and did otherwise. And it is a lesson and some consequences of their actions that is contrary to what they have said and what they have executed at the end of the day. We all saw some of them had dire consequences for the organizations. Then we must also appreciate that leadership will not be judged by how loudly we speak. It is not about words. It's not about how well spoken you can be, but how truthfully you act. That is going to be the key to your success in 2026. I'm going to zero in later on sector by sector, but let's look at the second lesson that we drew from 2025. Complexity has replaced certainty. The interconnected crises that we spoke about earlier, where economic stress fuels social tension, because economic conditions were beginning to, get worse by day. But midway in the year, things began to, lessen a bit. But it gave rise to social tension where a lot of people, especially fallout from 2024, where the global economic space, supply chain, and all that was impacted. The economic stress fueled social tension. Now, one of the prominent and the predominant issues, digital misinformation, or what is a social media, upsurge in social media, undermines security because a lot of people, resorted to the use of social media to kind of spread misinformation. And that was also one of the things that we witnessed in 2025. Policy decisions triggered unintended consequences across sectors. Now, the old question was, what is the right answer? But the new leadership question that we're going to be looking at is, what is the wisest response? It is not in all cases that the right answer needed to be sought after, but what is the wisest response? I'll give an example where one will have to resort to the use or utilize his or her emotional intelligence to be able to navigate around complex cases where you know very well that using the right approach as prescribed by policy or as prescribed by procedure may not necessarily be the right solution or response. So in 2026, we want to be looking at what will be the wisest response to every situation, because complexity has come to stay with us, and 2026 is not going to be a difference. Now, the other lesson is that for leaders to be effective in 2026, system thinking is very key. Holistic, comprehensive approach to doing things, not the just silo kind of working where you just look at it from your personal perspective or your expertise perspective, or let's say you are an accountant, you are an expert in economics, and you just look at it from economic perspective. Leaders must have a broad mind to look at things. And leaders must also be adaptive in decision making. It's not just decision, it must be adaptive to the trend. And humility must also be embraced in learning. You don't know it all. The current generation of followers that we have, especially the Gen Zs, the millennials, they have a lot to teach. So depending on which category you find yourself in, you have a lot to learn from the baby boomers, the Generation X, and they also have a lot to learn from you. Courage to adjust course. Leaders must look at the possibility of adjusting their course every now and then, the direction. We don't need to be static because the lessons from 2025 says that leaders who pretend to have all the answers will lose credibility. You cannot have all the answers. It is said that in the current scheme of things, your knowledge or your experience is rendered so obsolete in no time that it takes combined effort with your team members, with your followers, with your employees, with your staff to be able to surmount the challenges so you cannot pretend to have all the answers. Leaders who ask the right questions are definitely going to gain influence. So we must begin to look at the approach where we question rightly, we ask questions to understand, we listen actively so as not to just listen to respond, but listen to understand so we can respond appropriately. So we must learn to ask the right questions so we can gain influence with our team members. Now, having said that, let's quickly look at the sectoral leadership reflections for 2026. For the corporate leader, there will definitely be a shift from shareholder value to stakeholder trust. Now, how do we mean by that? Employees will not stay for salaries alone. They are not going to do that. Customers will not buy from brands they do not trust. That is true. So, because 2025 reminded us that profit without purpose is unsustainable. What is the essence of that profit? If the employees, if the staff are not catered for, their well-being is not sought after, or they are not respected, the culture within the environment, societies will no longer tolerate businesses that extract without contributing. We also saw some agitations in some communities as a result of companies just focusing on profit without necessarily contributing anything to. So sustainable development, sustainable business is going to be the mark of 2026. So our greatest asset as leaders within the corporate space will not be the balance sheet, but the organizational culture, as I indicated. The culture must be progressive. The leader must have a growth mindset. The leader must be appreciative of the team within there. Everybody is of value. We all witness leaders who will get to the workspace and will not even respond to greetings from their team members or their staff. That will not be something that is enduring. It will rather, incur the displeasure of your staff. So we need to appreciate the value, the assets we have, human assets or human capital, and build a very progressive culture for ourselves in 2026. What it means is that leaders must emphasize purpose-driven strategy. It's not going to be business as usual. Ethical corporate citizenship. Morality will come into play. Moral values will play largely. And culture, organizational culture that prioritizes well-being and innovation will be key to success. So as corporate leaders, our recommendation from the Abbey Consult is to prioritize well-being of your staff, the human capital, and promote innovation. Innovation is the backbone of progress or development in every sector, whichever way you look at it. One of the key questions that a leader should be asking within the corporate space should be asking is, does my organization inspire loyalty or mere obedience? If it's just mere obedience, then there is a big room for improvement. Leaders within the corporate sector must begin to not look at act merely as economic entities, look at the organizations as that, but social institutions with responsibilities to communities and future generations. Some leaders within the corporate space only operate because of money, only because of the profits, only because of the gains or the progress of the organization. But we have learned across the 2025 period that culture that is supportive of innovation and well-being of staff is the way to go. Now, when we come to law enforcement, the focus is going to be on legitimacy as a force multiplier because security is no longer defined only by force, but by legitimacy. Citizens are beginning to question a lot of things. The public will scrutinize how we act as law enforcement officers, not just what we achieve. The crime is becoming smarter and will continue to be smarter, faster, and less visible because digitalization is paving way for more complexity. So definitely law enforcement space will see some of these things. And authority must be balanced with accountability. I was talking to a group of leaders within the law enforcement space, and I mentioned that in as much as your work may be, shrouded in some quote unquote secrecy, accountability will never be thrown away because definitely there are layers that will always call to question the activities and inactions and actions of law enforcement officers. So law enforcement leaders must be conscious of this and know that authority giving is not just for its sake, but it must promote accountability. And by this, we say your uniform will give you power, but good conduct gives you trust. Law enforcement leaders must work hard to earn the trust of the citizenry so as to better their lot in enforcing the very law for which reason they have been engaged to enforce. Now, leadership renewal in 2026 will require that the law enforcement, especially within the police service and the rest, will have to be community-centered or community-focused. And in Ghana, for example, and other parts of Africa and elsewhere, we are seeing these growing faster among the police service and other law enforcement agencies. And strong ethical command leadership, where high values, progressive values are being subscribed to across board. Then institutional investment in officer welfare and professional development is key. There are some institutions within the law enforcement space that do not prioritize the welfare or the development, professional development of their staff. Leadership within the law enforcement will have to look at that because that's why you witness a lot of officers becoming disillusioned and look elsewhere to leave their system. So leadership must move beyond the command and control type of leadership, that's coercive power, towards legitimacy-based authority that recognizes the sustainable security is co-produced with society. Society plays a critical role in law enforcement. The larger community, they are the reason we exist as law enforcement officers. So leaders within the law enforcement space must begin to ask themselves, do citizens fear us or trust us to protect them? A law enforcement agency that instill fear and do not work to earn the trust of the community, from the word go ab initio, stands to fail because the trust is not there, no information will be forthcoming. So sustainable security must be built not just on control, but cooperation. Law enforcement must work extra hard and continually work so to promote cooperation among the citizenry. Excuse me. Now let's come to our traditional leaders. Our traditional leaders are the connect or the nexus between tradition and adaptation. So how do they maintain continuity of culture through adaptation? They are the bridge between the past and the future. Traditional leaders are the custodians of every society's culture. But the 2025 exposed a growing disconnect that is between tradition and the youth. younger generations are beginning to question a lot of traditions and the legitimacy of some of the traditional rulers. But yet, they still continue to look up to them in times of crisis. How do traditional leaders position themselves in the year ahead of us, 2026, so as to remain relevant in the space? Moral leadership is required, not just ceremonial authority. Yes, indeed, in our part of the world, Africa, across Africa, the ceremonial authority is there, but 2026 will require moral leadership. In Ghana, for example, when you talk about a galamsey fight, it is expected a lot of citizens are calling on the traditional rulers to be more, morally oriented, so as not to give off their lands for galamsey activities, as some have been accused of being part and parcel of the whole cartel. So influence will grow through mediation, justice, and inclusion. And to be able to do that, traditional rulers must entrust, as I said from beginning. How do traditional leader ensures that his or her activities are transparent, are clear, and are credible? Now, legacy will not be measured by power, but it will be measured by peace. The peace that prevails in your community as a traditional ruler is what we envisage as the legacy that will ensure your legacy. Then when it comes to within the same space, moral authority must be grounded in fairness and mediation. Inclusion is also key. Cultural education is another one. Strategic collaboration with state institutions. How futuristic are you as a traditional ruler so that you look beyond the present and be dynamic enough rather than being static, so that you offer guidance for contemporary challenges while you are preserving cultural identity? Culture is supposed to be progressive. So traditional leaders in 2026 must look at some of these areas and work accordingly. And the key question again is, are you a guardian of history or architects of harmony? Are you just mere guardian of history or architects of harmony? Because tradition that does not adapt will fade, but the one that leaves will endure. So that is key for traditional. Now to my colleagues in the academic space, in the academia, relevance, responsibility, and courage is what will inform 2026 leadership behavior. 2025 asks the difficult questions. Are we relevant enough? Is the academia contributing enough? Within 2025, what has been the trend? What has been the focus of the academia? Research must speak to policy in 2026. Teaching must prepare students for ethical leadership, not just for employment. We need to move away from traditional, teacher, student, where we need to encourage students to be more innovative and be more morally grounded. We all know what is happening in most of our tertiary institutions across Africa, especially, where a lot of the young ones are not seeing the relevance of tertiary education, for example, or education as a whole. They are beginning to question the essence of education. Let us remember within the academic space that we are not just shaping minds, but we are shaping conscience. So academia must focus on shaping of conscience so that will lead to production of or growing of more leaders for the future. That is the only way we can guarantee a better society. Are we producing graduates, or we are shaping citizens capable of leadership? The leadership is a deliberate act. It doesn't come naturally. You must be deliberate about it. And I think that colleagues in the academic space must work extra hard to create that platform for younger people, students, old and young, to learn about leadership. We must, demonstrate it by being exemplary to our learners. Knowledge does not serve society Knowledge that does not serve society eventually will lose its authority. That is why a lot of people are beginning to question. So research must speak to policy. And by so doing, we must look at applied policy relevant research. Research must be policy related, and ethical and civic education will be, at the core of most of the things that will be expected of academia. Protection of academic freedom with responsible engagement. Now, what we in the academia must appreciate is that if we want to reclaim our role as centers of learning, we must also work towards being custodians of national conscience and innovation. Corruption is everywhere, even within the academic space. So how do we demonstrate to the external world that indeed the academia is, the custodian of conscience or national conscience and innovation? It must be cultural. Now let's come to our political leaders. From electoral success to statesmanship, over the period, we have all seen how it's become more and more critical for citizens to question the relevance of democracy. 2025 really revealed a deep democratic fatigue among people, as I indicated earlier. People are beginning to disengage, not because they do not care, but because they feel unheard. And so political leadership must rise above the populism. It's very important. We at the Abbey Council deem it fit that we recommend that politicians begin to work towards, rising above populism and be more inclusive, transparent, and accountable. Statesmanship must replace short-term calculations. Statesmanship here is where the participants in democratic governance will look beyond the next election and put in systems that will benefit the nation in the long term. Will history remember you as a leader or a manager of opportunity? Are you a statesman? Are you a politician? Political power is temporary, but national legacy is permanent. What are you leaving behind? What are you hoping to be remembered for? 2026 is an opportunity for you to get that done. Then we also believe that there must be long-term national vision beyond electoral cycles, inclusive and participatory governance, transparency and accountability in public administration. We don't want to belabor the point that so much is going on within the public administration space, and we need to do something. Those of us who are in the political space, we must focus more on demonstrable service to the public good rather than just the rhetorics. Now, will history remember you as a leader or manager of opportunity? What then will be, in summary, the leadership standard for 2026? We're looking at character before charisma, service before self-interest, dialogue before decree, wisdom before speed, legacy before longevity. Now, leadership principles that are contained in these 5 key items speak to stewardship. Stewardship is, a temporary authority exercise for enduring institutional and societal benefits. So we have to begin to look at and behave away from the usual positional leadership to, leadership that is grounded on stewardship, grounded on long-term benefits and societal benefit rather than self-interest. The question is no longer going to be, can we lead? Because beginning, the question we posed was, can leaders have the authority to lead since their authority is being questioned left and right? The question now is, can we lead in a way that restores trust, heals divisions, and prepares others to lead after us? There's so much acrimony within our workspaces, and 2026 is an opportunity for us to make a difference. In conclusion, we need to appreciate that 2025 did not break leadership. It's rather clarified it, that indeed leadership is and will continue to remain the fulcrum around which everything revolves. Let's remind ourselves that leadership, as we practice, should not be about control. It must be about stewardship. It's not about being dominant or the only brain in the room. It must be responsible. It must be exercised responsibly. And it's not about survival, personal survival, but it's a service that must be rendered to fellow colleagues at the workplace. I prefer to call colleagues the team members. Without them, the leaders are nobody. So as we step into the year in the next 2 days, let's remember that the world does not need louder leaders, but wiser ones. We don't need perfect leaders, but credible ones. We don't need leaders. We need leaders who will listen and listen actively, and leaders who will act with courage, and leaders who build institutions that will outlive them. On this note, I will say that the imperative is not to restore the old normal. The imperative we are talking about is to build a new leadership ethos grounded in trust, adaptability, and responsibility. Let's not allow 2026 to judge us by just the control we have, but it must judge us by the capacity we build across, the legitimacy we establish, and the legacy we leave behind. The question I will pose is, what will outlast you? Is it your authority, the institution, or the people you help in shaping? These are questions for reflection as we go into 2026. On this note, let's ask again, not what we can gain, but what we must give. What are you ready to give of? Are you going to be selfless? What are the things that you will be looking at in the way forward into 2026? How are you going to prepare others for the future? On this note, thank you very much. This is just the intro to the discourse. In the next 25 to 30 minutes, if we have questions and contributions, the floor is open for all of us to do. Thank you very much. Hello, am I being heard, please? Hello? Hello, just unmute yourself, and if you have something to tell us, you go ahead. Did I see? Hello? Technical support, can you help us to unmute?
Okay. Hi.
Okay, all right.
Hello. Can you hear me? I think we were having difficulties with the host. I'm
Hello.
Hello, please, you can kindly unmute yourself and talk if you have any comments or questions.
all right. Okay. Can I hear? Okay, sorry.
Yes, we can hear you now, please.
All right. Okay. Good day. Good day. Thank you, Doug, for very insightful discussion on leadership and all that. It's exciting, particularly because the year is coming to an end, and your discussion appeared to have summarized the key themes that actually influence leadership in the course of 2025. My concerns border on two geopolitical matters that weigh heavily on the leadership landscape going into 2026 and more. Leadership, as it were, as you have said, doesn't hang in a vacuum. Leadership is influenced by so many determinants. In Africa, particularly in the sub-Saharan Africa, where we all live, for example, we are seeing the increasing isolation of our brothers, the Burkinabes, the Malis, the Nigerians, the way they tear off from the ECOWAS. And also we are seeing much more interest in that kind of phenomenon. At the security level, for example, I think just 2 days ago, we got a report from Intel that the lack of collaboration from our brothers is actually encouraging and emboldening terrorists to actually infiltrate down south and all that, all causing tremors for leadership in sub-Sahara. When you also come to the bigger world, you are also seeing, as long as Donald Trump remains in the White House over the next 3 years, the global leadership landscape will still be very wobbly because you have no idea what is coming the next day. The next morning, Nigeria is taken over by, religious, confusion, and a bomb is thrown somewhere and all that. In the wake of all these issues, unemployment in Africa has become so pervasive. We have no idea what we are doing at the leadership level, whether at the micro or macro level, to help the youth and get employment. So you see frustration, despondency, lack of opportunities and all that. So the leadership landscape actually doesn't bid well at all for all of us in Africa. Within this conversation, what would you say, or what would anybody say, even before we cross over into 2026? Thank you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much for such elaborative preamble before even the question. It opens up the discourse, widely for all of us to appreciate. Thank you very much. I will allow another person to come on before I come in with my comments, if anyone wants to do so. Please just unmute yourself and come in. All right, while we are waiting for any other person, you can still put your comments or your questions in the chat box as well, and we'll look at it. Now, Nana, with regards to the political space and all the issues that you spelled out, I want to believe that the time has come with the revelations of 2025. 2026 requires leaders to be more cooperative, to be more collaborative in their approach to doing things. When it comes to the security space or the global geopolitics, collaboration or cooperation is more required than ever, than just working in silos. The other day, I was talking to somebody who was vehemently arguing about deglobalization. That it's about time the world begins to work in silos. I still hold strongly onto the view that leadership across the globe must work collaboratively because digitalization, advancement in technology is making everything so complex. Remember, in our discourse some time ago, I mentioned that so long as technology continues to advance, it takes combined effort of leaders across geographical jurisdictions to be able to fight crime, for example, to be able to lead effectively, to be able to even run economic systems effectively. So collaboration, cooperation is key moving into 2026 for me, largely. And even if you narrow it down to the micro level, where the organizational level or even the small team level, leaders must work collaboratively with their members, with their followers, in order to achieve the bigger and optimize the gains that they seek to make. So that is my comments on that. Then I have seen comments that since the new currency is trust, what leadership changes are required to ensure credibility, transparency, and accountability in 2026 and beyond. What that means, Prince, is that leaders must be more engaging. Leaders must be must be effective communicators. They must develop emotional intelligence to be able to appreciate, the fact that their utterances impact on people, their body language, their attitude towards people either will earn them trust or will damage the little trust or whatever they have already. And collaborating with people also mean that demonstrating high value of integrity or ethical moral standards, or if you like, the very core values they subscribe to as within the organization, they must demonstrate, they must live it. And to build credibility, where credibility is defined as or is looked at as the expertise and the experience one has, your collaboration with others will even enhance your own credibility and how transparency can be controversial in the sense that some people will argue how transparent can you be? I will always say you must be transparent within defined parameters. Defined parameters should be able to encourage you to reveal what needs to be revealed to people. People must know it on time. Other leaders will have information, they will not share it. And when things go wrong, then they'll say, yes, I knew about it. That becomes, selfish approach to doing things. So in brief, leaders must be able to work across and be closer more to their team members. Mr. Pedo, I see your hand up. You can unmute yourself and then just proceed. Hello? Mr. Ken, your hand is up, but we can't hear you. Your mic is unmuted. Please go ahead and let's hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Doc, for the presentation. The name is Ken Podu.
Ken Podu. I guess you're having some internet challenges. I know how you want to speak. Okay, please
into some of this. Yeah. So basically, what I want to maybe contribute or ask is that from the presentation that we just did now, we zero everything on trust and then service as leadership from my end, in summarizing it. And it looks like these two are the ones that will carry us. So my question is, why is it difficult for trust and for service to lead our leaders? And why is it that they are not able to put from local, traditional to our regional levels and interconnected? Why is it that leaders are not able to put in check the hawks in bracket that follows them, that creates some of these big challenges for us? Over.
All right, thank you very much. In my submissions, I mentioned that leadership is an intentional, it's a deliberate, enterprise. If one does not really, push him or herself into that space, that enterprise to learn and to be conscious of behavior, attitude, and be intentional about everything, nothing will work. And talking about trust, it must be intentionally, developed. It must be intentionally worked at or towards. Otherwise, if you see leadership, and by and large, because most people see leadership as authority, and they do not ask themselves the critical questions that, okay, now that this authority has been given to me, what am I going to do with it? So they look at it just from positional perspective. They look at it that, yes, I am the one with the authority. I have what I will choose, and I will decide what I want to do with it, without realizing that it is stewardship, it's temporary. So a lot of them zero in on what do I gain immediately. And, to a very large extent, our culture, especially in Africa, I look at it from even cultural perspective, where we have gradually gotten to a space where immediately somebody is given a position of authority, then the culture requires that he becomes the sponsor of everything. So that is where he must operate in secrecy, things must be shrouded in secrecy, he must begin to engage in corrupt acts. And those who do not subscribe to that are gradually becoming, um, rejected by society. Today, the question I always ask is, a younger person finds himself in a position, and the things he can do, an elderly person has been in that position, has not been able to do that. The question is, why is society not questioning all those things? When you extend it to the regional bloc or even the continental level, it is because everybody is not believing that this person is acting selflessly, because it is gradually becoming the order of the day, where even those who want to act in good faith are seen as the odd ones, and trust is being eroded on daily basis. So I am of the strong view, that trust is key to leadership excellence. You can have the expertise, you can have the knowledge, you can have the charisma, you can have what have you, but if trust is missing, nothing will work. So culturally, yes, and society is getting to a space where if we are not intentional about leadership training, where we train people before we appoint them into positions of authority, we are going to experience this more and more and more. Apart from the military and other security services that deliberately take people through leadership, most organizations or most institutions do not really give orientation to personnel before appointing them into positions of authority. So people look at it that by virtue of me being on the job for a number of years, I am the leader, or by virtue of me being appealing or very charismatic, I have the best rights to be a leader. And that is what is killing us. 2026, all of us must work towards developing even our own leadership skills, our own leadership potential, so we can better leadership in our part of the world. Leadership is indeed responsibility. It's not positional. I hope I have addressed your concerns. All right, we have about 10 minutes more. If anyone wants to make even a contribution from your own share experiences for within the year, so people can learn from those experiences, challenges one encounters within the year, or have encountered within the period, and then we can all pick up lessons and we move forward into next year. Just unmute yourself. Otherwise, you can put it in the chat box as well. I must say, while waiting for the next person, let me also be quick to mention that within the non-governmental agency space, or if you like, the philanthropic space, accountability is also becoming a key issue for leaders within that space, because donors will question what the funds are used for. Donors will ask questions that the project that I executed on their behalf, is it relevant? Is it of any benefit to the beneficiaries? And so leaders within that philanthropic space, or if you like, non-governmental space, must also begin to look at how accountable they are to their people and the donors as well. It's very important for leaders to know that the world is changing gradually to a space where every single thing that a leader does will come under the mirror, and people will question why it is being done. We are heading towards a space where things will no longer be swept under the carpet. People will openly question credibility of leaders. And so all of us who want to be great leaders in the coming year, we must begin to look at the way we do things, and we must do things differently. Right? Okay. I guess at this point, we are all okay. It's not intended for a longer period. It's just to give us a teaser and a food for thought for all of us to reflect on. I see a hand up. Is there an old hand or?
Yeah, Doc, there's a new hand.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yes. So still on the accountability that you just made mention of, are there some accountability systems that leaders can put in place to ensure integrity or performance in 2026 or moving forward? Are there some accountability systems that leaders can put in place?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Indeed, I usually subscribe to what I call the accountability partner. Besides all the systems, the checks and balances within the workspace or the organizational systems, procedures, and all that, I have what I call or what is largely described as accountability partner. You should, as a leader, you should be able to have somebody who will look straight into your face and tell you whether you're doing well, you are doing the right stuff or not. If you don't have that single person who can, tell you in the face how you are faring in your leadership drive, then it's about time you look for one so that it will tell you as it is, as unpleasant or unpalatable as it may be. You should have one person who will be able to tell you. If you don't, it should give you reason to worry. Because you see, most of us naturally we want to hear the things we want to hear. And so if you are not careful, people will tell you what you want to hear. But there should be one person who you trust that will tell you as it is, and you should have one for yourself. And that, besides that, the structures, the systems, the procedures, the counter checks, and all that should be in place. We're talking about the counter checks. Some places, somebody is a sole signatory to procurement, and because he's the overall, nobody questions it. It doesn't promote accountability. I also I subscribe to the view that in as much as leaders assess their followers should be able to also assess the leader. The leader should avail himself to be assessed by the team members. He should be able to put himself on the spot and ask his followers to assess him. If we are really doing the right thing, you will know, and we all know when we are doing the right thing. So it's also an accountability system that we can put in place. 360-degree feedback is also important. Why should leaders assess their members, but members or team members don't have opportunity to assess them? It will inure to your own benefit if you put such a system in place. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, from Mr. Jokinson Jokuto said, I only want to add to discussion that leadership has some elements of failure which must be accepted and worked on. Leadership is not perfectionism. Of course, indeed, you are right. And that is why it's a continuous process. It's a journey. It's not a destination. Leadership is a continuous journey. And so leaders cannot say, I have arrived, so that is all. No, you must continuously learn. And what we are doing this afternoon is part of that process of subjecting ourselves to continuous learning. as is always said, knowledge shared is knowledge gained. It is not to say I have it all. It's just to open up the platform for all of us to learn. So indeed, there is always, you may not get it all right. So that is why it's a continuous journey for all of us. Nobody is perfect. Then, yeah, Ken Ajiman Prempe, kudos, Lion Dr. Abe, for this delivery. Okay, so on this note, I want to say thank you very much for being part of this discourse this afternoon. It's been a great pleasure having you, spending your time for us to have this discourse. In the coming days or between tomorrow and 1st of January, I will share some write-up on what we have discussed online, and those who have registered, I will share it through your email so you can have more materials to read or to ponder on in the coming days. At this point, I wish all of us a prosperous 2026 in advance. May the Lord God bless all of us, equip us with the wisdom that we require to lead creditably and be credible and accountable in our leadership, journey in 2026. On this note, I wish all of us the best of luck in our leadership drive. Thank you very much. And God bless us all.